Welcome to H3 Live. You are here with Trish and Steve. Hey, Steve Boese.
Hey, Trish, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well, thank you.
I see you've got your hat on. You've got
I
your,
do.
what does your shirt say? Does that like I am? You are Knuff. Look at that.
I dig this shirt. Yeah, well, the Barbie movie was such a big story, right, in
Right?
2023, and we just had the Academy Awards a few weeks ago, and it was a big part of that story as well for both for not really winning, but also not being nominated, and then of course the big musical performance of the Ken character
That's
singing
right.
the Ken song. So I did get the shirt. I do like the shirt. I am Knuff, I think, and yeah, but so I wanted to have a topic semi-related to this, and so
Okay.
we're a few weeks past this, Trish, but Equal Pay Day in the United States,
Oh, yeah.
right, was March 12th, and that represents how far into the new year, on average, right, that women have to work in order to catch up to the earnings of men for the prior year. So it's like 3.5 months
Yeah.
equates to about 16 or 17%, right? Less earnings for equivalent work. And we've done a lot of work last year, including with our friends at salary.com on pay equity. And there's more to come on that. But so I wanted to throw out that stat, Trish. And then we used to do these shows all the time. And I used to love quizzing you, right? I don't know if you loved it so much, but Trish, how many, this is of the last summer of 2023. So I think it's still
Okay.
close. How many, what percent of the CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies, which are the largest publicly traded companies by revenue, okay, so huge companies, what percentage have female or women CEOs, would you guess, of the Fortune 500?
Of the Fortune 500.
Of the Fortune 500, biggest companies in the America.
You know what? I think the number is still going to be really low. I feel like I know a lot of female CEOs, but they're not in the Fortune 500. I don't
Yeah,
think.
this is an imperfect barometer, of course.
Yeah. 15%?
That's a good guess. You're close. It's about 10%, about 10.5%.
So
And
low.
that does represent a high watermark for the Fortune 500. And I'll just throw out there too, in our industry, kind of broad industry, CEO of Oracle, of course, is a woman, Safra Katz.
Right.
And
Right.
the CEO of ADP is Maria Black, who's also in a Fortune 500. So we do have two in our little area. So yeah, there you go. So that was my tie back into Barbie and Knuff and
Being
all
Knuff,
that.
huh?
Yeah.
That, you know what? That's just scary to think about that because I think like it's the needle just isn't moving very much year over year, you know. So I guess I'm grateful for the ones we have, but I just want to see more of that from our young women, right? Getting into those positions. I will say this too, though. Even in our industry, there are a lot of female executives in those top spots. Maybe not
Oh,
the
for sure.
CEO spot, but definitely chief operating officers, chief financial officers, lots and lots. Of course, CHROs as well. So yeah, but still targeting CEOs, right?
I mean, yeah, I think that's a good barometer, right? Because ultimately, right, especially at these big companies, the final decision-making point is the CEO. And yeah,
It is.
I
It
think
is.
you'd like to see more balance for sure, right,
Yeah,
in the CEO ranks.
I agree with that. Well, listen, it's interesting you're talking about executives. So I have two news items that kind of go together. So I'm going to read them sort of together. But I was reading on CNBC and I was of course always researching about artificial intelligence and generative AI just to stay up on things, right? From a variety of sources. And Deloitte had put out a survey. I'm going to read it because I want to get it right. It said 45% of executives surveyed are actively uptraining and training their workers on artificial intelligence.
Okay.
44% are actively hiring for it as a skill. And then I found an article that said from Indeed, which, you know, they're friends of the show. Obviously, we trust, you know, their research. Among the highest paid tech skills right now, AI is number one. Maybe not a big shocker, but I don't know if I knew it was number one. I knew it was probably pretty close. And when a job included generative AI specifically, the salary is 47% higher.
Wow, that's
That
nice.
one surprised me. I don't know. Does that surprise you at all to hear that it has gone from being not a thing to a big thing really quickly, actually.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't say I'm surprised, right? We've seen this before with other technologies over the last 15 or 20 years that have sort of achieved this mind share really, really quickly. It could have been virtual reality before that. It might have been blockchain maybe
That's
in
true.
the last few years. And I'm not sure what's actually happening on the blockchain anymore, but that
Yeah.
was very buzzy thing for a while. And a little bit further back, like cloud computing would have been one of those topics as well, or one of those sets of skills that would have been really, really in high demand all of a sudden, right? So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. But and I think too, the difference for me is while those that you mentioned are things that certainly if you're in HR, you're in talent, your talent acquisition, of those things, but you don't have to be completely versed in those things. I feel like artificial intelligence, is specifically generative AI, we really do have to be versed in this, right? Because it impacts our jobs as well, like on
yeah,
a daily basis, and it's going to enhance our jobs. I've got a webinar coming up in just a few days, which I know as it gets closer, we'll kind of put that out there, but with our friends at iSolved, and we're talking about what CHROs need to know about all types of artificial intelligence, right? This
right.
has been around for a long time. So the artificial intelligence piece isn't new, but generative AI is very new. So, like, talking about what we need to know in order to be um, good at it, but also to protect our data.
Mhm.
Lots of ethical considerations and concerns. So
Yeah.
still, but yeah, I was shocked by the you get 47% higher salaries with that. So I'd like a raise. That's what I'm really getting at. I'd like a
Yeah.
raise.
Put in your request.
I'll put it in. Who would I request that from?
I don't know.
Hey, I know we're planning on keeping this right at the 10-minute mark. We got a couple minutes left. Any other big topics you want to cover?
Yeah, I want to talk about something called the right to disconnect law, Trish. This was in the news this week, and it's not a new thing. It just made the news this week because a representative in California a bill out there to be considered in that state for what's called the right to disconnect. And if you don't know about this, it's essentially a law or a set of regulations which more or less allows employees to opt out or ignore work messaging, calls,
Yeah,
emails, other forms of messaging, Slack messages, Microsoft Teams, you name it, allows them to ignore them without repercussions when they come outside of working hours, essentially, right? And there's some details that surround the enactment of these laws. They have been passed, similar laws have been passed in other places like Australia, France, Germany, Italy, and maybe a couple of others. Um, it's interesting because it gets to the work-life balance conversation, right? Quite
mhm,
significantly, right? And we went through the pandemic era, particularly in knowledge work, right, where folks were working from home, and many still do, or work in hybrid manner. That all of a sudden we were always at work, or work was always 3 feet away from us at the
right.
kitchen table or in the den or wherever it was you set up your home office. And now all of a sudden you were available all the time. And there's certainly some backlash against that, particularly from workers who are feeling burned out, feeling stressed, feel like they can never get away from work. So we'll see. I'm not sure if the law will pass or not. California is a very pro worker state,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
So what do you think about the right to disconnect? Should companies kind of think about this and how much messaging and stuff goes on to their employees outside of the normal working day?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question. There's probably not a quick answer, but I will say this. Having grown up when we grew up in work, um, it's just something you did. It's a given, right? And so to think of not being able to just be connected to someone is a little scary. But I will say, I think now that, you have more younger workers entering the workforce, like a larger generational population than people in their 50s, we'll say.
Yeah,
Okay. There are fewer people in their 50s, more people in their 20s and 30s. I think that even without a law, I do think that's going to change because I think that they expect to not be connected at all times. We, on the other hand, if you've been in work, say for 30 years, 25, 30 years, we were rewarded for being available at all times. I mean, I can go back. It's not anything bad in my mind, but I think people today would think it's bad. When I worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers, I was in my 20s, and it would be frequently, like if I couldn't sleep at 2 or 3 in the morning and I'd get online just to like catch up. No, I would have so many messages from my partners of things they needed because they were up in the middle of the night working, or maybe they were in, I've had jobs where I was supporting Asia or Europe, or, and so
Oh, sure. Time differences play a role somewhat.
differences. So yeah, I do feel like that we're moving that way anyway. But yeah, I think that if I were back in head of HR, I would probably be talking about this to my business leaders as something we need to implement before we're legally told to do so.
I would certainly be working with the leaders as well as the IT folks in the organization to even just produce a report on a monthly basis
That's
about
a good idea.
messaging patterns in the organization, email, Slack, other forms of
At what
corporate messaging that you have access to. Look at some trends, look at some graphs, see how much of this is really going on and get an understanding of that. And I'd start there for sure. But yeah, it's interesting. So I'll follow the story. Trish, I did a Workplace Minute on this the other day. And if it does pass in California, it'll be certainly interesting to see how organizations adapt to it.
Well, you're right. And if it passes, it'd be fun to have one on the show and talk to someone who's actually doing that and did it. I love your idea though about like right now finding out, is this even an issue in your workplace? I would imagine there are some workplaces that have a culture where, yeah, you disconnect when you leave work, right?
Yeah.
And then others where you don't. And it was sort of a badge of honor if you're connected at all times, right? I kind of joke, even back in that job when I was on bed rest when I was pregnant with my twins. I was on bed rest in a hospital for 9 weeks. I actually had people coming to the hospital to like resign or to come and talk about dealing with their boss. Like that stuff can go away, right?
That's messed up.
All of that stuff about work can go away. But
Yeah.
anyway, I am really excited for the younger generations, though. I do think that's going to naturally start happening more and more. So,
Yeah.
anyway, well, great stories today. Thanks everyone for tuning in with us. I know we had a bunch live and on the show the other day. Wow, like almost 1,000 people tuned in even after the fact. So
that's awesome.
Hi to everyone who's live and hi to everyone who tunes in later. But yeah, let us know if you hear of a good story, you want to talk about something, you want to pop on here with us. Like we're welcome to anyone can join. So let us know. But in the meantime, we're going to keep looking for good news stories that affect work, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye, everyone.